Hi everyone, thank you for coming over. It's great to see everyone here. First of all, I would like to thank MyJAR for the opportunity that, and especially to Christina and Martina for helping me choose the topic, which is definitely very close to my heart. So as we progress, I'll just give you a little bit of my introduction. So I've had I would say, a pretty successful career in India. And after 8 years of working with one of the best companies there and with good positions, I decided to take a bit more, I would say, jump head first and decided to move my countries and try and get into a new social culture and with different kind of jobs and I would say a little more advanced economy. So that's how I moved to Talent. I've been here for 8 months and absolutely loving it. It was definitely a bit of culture shock when I moved, but it's perfect. I can say I'm Estonian now. So, so I'll start with my topic. The topic is about women in IT, and this is completely focused on developing countries and the challenges that we face and the inspiring stories that come out of these. So let's begin. And the first thing I would like to explain what exactly a developing country is, because most of the time we have like a different image, but what it is described as a country which has a low human development index. So where there's still scope of development is what I would say. It's sub-segmented into 4 different categories. One is the newly industrialized countries, which are basically South Africa, Mexico, where the industrialization has taken place and people are more comfortable with their economies. The most critical one is the emerging markets. India is where I come from, and it's a different mayhem already, I would say that. Frontier markets are markets where countries are already producing stuff and they are developing, but it's still not at a very high pace. That's why they are placed between like the least developed, which are obviously Somalia and Afghanistan for now. So I will be explaining a lot more about the developing countries. To start with, this is my favorite cartoon about developing countries. So most of the times, what we try to do is try to find some tech solutions in these companies. So when let's say somebody is coming, okay, this mobile app will help you in mapping and monitoring key water points. But the thing is, what people ask is like, will it carry the water for me? Because the thing is, what we don't understand is the problems are completely different in developing countries. And it's not like one solution that fits all. You have to understand different segments and how do you address it. So one of my closest examples in which something like, I don't know how many of you know about internet.org. So this was an initiative which Facebook started in India, and it's the only initiative which a large organization like Facebook completely failed at. So what happened is, there's just a little backstory to it. So once our recent Prime Minister got elected, Mr. Zuckerberg came to India and he said, hey, we want to do something for India, let's collaborate or do something. We will probably give like free internet to the Indians. As most of you, if you work in the technology and you understand what a big market India is right now, because more people are moving and adopting technology. So they decided, but the problem Facebook did was in internet.org, they provided free internet, but they only provided certain apps that were for free. No prices for guessing if it's Facebook, and everything if you want to use Google was paid for. So they moved to this more unbiased sort of approach where you just get some things for free and the other things you have to pay for. And even the poor, now what you have to understand is people who don't own mobiles in India are extremely poor. They cannot afford it. Now, if they're that poor, social media is no use to them. Like even if you give them free Facebook app, they have no means to use it and they have nothing to share on the social media. So this was like the biggest epic fail like which Facebook had faced, and it was pretty weird. And you cannot imagine like a company like Facebook, which definitely must have put in like millions of their dollars into research, got something so critically so wrong. But the good thing is Google learned from it. And what Google did, it provided like a simple thing, free Wi-Fi on every station and just use it. What Google got in return was obviously data for lots of people. And what these guys also decided to do is, so what they are approach is they started doing like they started investing in jobs instead of giving up free stuff because they realized, okay, let's utilize this much more better. I'm sorry, I'm just having some. Okay, so they have started investing in jobs in India. Now, now let's move on to more the centers of like how I'll take you guys through like the entire journey of females, and what I'm trying to be is like absolutely, it's a big responsibility because I am almost representing a percentage of a billion women. But what I'm trying to do is trying to keep it more, what do you say, centralized, more generalized. So obviously there are exceptions, and obviously not everyone goes through the extreme sort of cases that we will go through. So the first thing I want you to understand is what happens, like, so, why is India so unique? The percentage of female graduates from the tertiary degrees in selected subjects. So if you can actually see, it's the women who choose science and technology in India is actually 10% more than one of the most developed economies, that's US. The next thing that is 57% of high performing. So high performing women are the women who have performed best throughout their school and throughout their high school. 50% of them, 57% of them actually take up one of the STEM disciplines, which are medicines, engineering, or science fields. In US, in fact, that is only 4% of women who choose for this. And so what happens to the rest of them? Like where in India, what happens to the rest of them? And the truth is, patriarchy happens to them. So patriarchy is one of like the biggest problems that India is facing right now, but this is something that has been cultural for over the years. It's always been a male-dominated culture. So, and this is also one of my favorite cartoons about it. What I've always found surprising, I don't know if it's here, but in India, you will always see a group of men sitting together and deciding what benefits should women have. And I don't know, I just don't understand why women are not there making decisions with them. So now, just to understand India as a market, the culture is completely different, as predominantly it's been male-dominated, etc. So this is one of the reasons why women, like these are some of the different things that women face in India. Second thing is societal norms. In India, your business is everyone's business. Your neighbors, your aunts, everyone wants to know what you're doing in life. You can't just say, you know what, let me be, no. That's not how it works. So women do face a lot of societal pressure. Marriage, usually when a girl is married off, she's sent to her marital, like they live in the marital home, and then again, as it's everyone's decision whether she can work or not, whether she can do this or not. In-laws have a lot of say in it. Then most of the times women choose by themselves after they have children is to drop out of jobs and focus more at home. And this is one of the most interesting topics, and what we have noticed in the lower segment of earning in India as well. As soon as the family income increases, women stop working. It's because most of the reasons are like, okay, why do you need to go and work? We have enough money, you can just chill at home. So sometimes it doesn't have to be anything that is more, more dominating or something, but just sometimes it's an option. Okay, so as we move through the journey, let's see what happens in school and high school in India. And this is again like most of the cases. I'm just trying to keep it with the facts. So Indian government invests a lot in education, invests a lot in female initiatives. So this year's budget is 17 billion USD that Indian government is spending on uplifting women. And they also, for primary education till class 5, all the government schools give free education to Indian girls. So there are a lot of efforts, everyone's being very conscious about women should study, but still they drop out. 32% of girls drop out at the age of 14 to 18. They do not finish their school. 89% of them are made to do household chores. But this is obviously women or girls who come from impoverished backgrounds or lower income groups. Now, what are the main reasons? First of all, the most important reason is parents prefer boys. So the thing is, like, once you come from a limited income family group, your money is limited. So they always prefer boys to study and the girls should drop out because obviously boys have to grow up, have their own families, and girls are always expected to be married off. One of the most surprising reasons is menstruation. Because of not proper sanitation or awareness around it, a lot of girls drop out of school because it's embarrassing for them to go to school when they have periods. And safety. So this is, I used to volunteer with one of the institutions which used to teach tribal students. So we used to teach them math and science, the skills that you need in the world, we believed in. So one of the girls dropped out, and when I asked her, and when I reached her home and I asked her, I was like, hey, why did you drop out? So she used to get eve teased while she was on the way to our classes. And when she told her dad about that, he's like, oh, you know what, then you should stop going there because then the problem would be solved. So it's a lot of cultural stigma that girls face also, and then sometimes they're helpless. And when they move on to higher education, almost 39 to, like, the growth has been pretty good from 2007 to 2014. It's 46% of women who are moving on for higher studies, and that's phenomenal for a country like India, because you know that parents are investing in their education as well. But the problem that we also see is in technology, only 26% of the students are girls all across, and you can imagine with the population. So there's only one girl to every 3 boys. But in fact, in my engineering class, we were just 10 girls in a class of 80. So you do get a lot of attention from guys, but that's not what you want sometimes. And most of them, in fact, even drop out after studies. So most of the reasons that they drop out for marriage, again, the average age for women to get married in India is 18 to 22. I was pretty astonished at the average age here in Estonia. And there's obviously gender bias and how the jobs are placed. Men are again preferred because they always presume the women will get married off and drop out of the career funnel. Safety again. And one of the most important things is blatant sexism in engineering college. It's so normalized. So I remember once my professor had just told me, he's like, oh, why do you girls even take engineering? Like, you can take something that's, home science or arts. And, a boy has, like, a deserving boy has lost his seat because of you. And it's supposed to be, like, super funny. You can't, and you just look at him and like, what? So, moving on. So jobs. 34%, this is very alarming actually. Like in 1990, there were more people who were working, women, compared to right now. And in spite of our increase in like spends and everything, this is something that we are, even in the country, they're trying to understand what is happening. Women in tech jobs are only 6.8%, which is absolutely very low. And as you can see in the graph, how over the years, women actually drop out of a career or of jobs. So only 28% of the women stay or rather complete 0 to 5 years. By the end of 12 plus years, it's only 7% who actually have a job or continue working. The reasons again are sexism, unfriendly work environment. A lot of times it's happened that women are passed over for promotions. A lot of companies believe in investing in male employees because they're just going to stick longer. And restricted growth. And what also Indian women face is trying to balance, like they are expected to be like perfect in balancing their family life and work life, and they just can't do it anymore and they drop out. Now this is one of my, I used to be like really inspired by Oprah Winfrey and other stories till this happened to me, and this is one of my most inspirational stories. So I would like to share with you. So these are the 2 girls who I met in this My Government initiative. And they come from like a really small town, like super small town from south of India. And so basically this initiative was a Google and Indian government initiative. It was the largest crowdsourced competition for a mobile app. So even we thought like we should do something for our country, and coming from tech, this is the only thing we could do. So I applied with my friends, and we decided to apply for this competition. There were almost 200,000 entries, and their team and my team were the lucky ones who actually went through like all the rounds and all the tests, and we were one of the top 10 finalists. So what happened was, there's just like a little backstory. So So for our final presentation, we were called to New Delhi. We were made to stay in like a super fancy hotel and everything. It's when I met them. And for me, I just immediately realized that maybe they didn't come from such a well-off background because they didn't know their way around like simple things in a hotel or something that never stayed. So we just spoke. I helped them with certain things and all that. And after our presentations, we were just sitting for a dinner. And when only 2 teams were selected to move on from 10 to the top position, and they were one of them. I actually lost that round. But when I got an email and I read about it, she was just passing and I was like, hey, congratulations. She's like, for what? I said, you made it to the final too. And she's like, oh, really? I said, you don't know about it? She's like, I don't own a phone. So, and I was like, what? You're an Android developer. Like, you don't own a phone? And it just got me more intrigued in her story. So obviously, without being too rude or whatever, I tried to find out more about her. And what I realized is her family income was €5 a day, which is less than 400 rupees, and it's absolutely nothing even in India. And she had no internet. She used to walk 8 kilometers to a neighboring village where her brother's friend was teaching her how to develop. And that's where she learned. And she didn't even have toilets in her house. So this, like coming at such a same level and as most of the best Android developers, all of India, I think the story was super inspiring, is just going through this every single day just to follow what you want to do. And the second inspiring story, this has got nothing to do with tech, but I think it's super interesting. What I want to tell everyone is like, we don't have to be in tech. We just have to have like a good persuasive story or something we are passionate about, and we can just follow it through. So this is called the Mahina Mahila Foundation. Mahina is a bird, which is usually always mocked at speaking too much or chattering in India. So what these guys do is, since menstruation is a big taboo, and obviously this is for the lowest income group in India, so what they try to do, so the problems that we have right now, it's still taboo, nobody speaks to you about it, or the women are not very well educated around it, there's no access to tampons or pads, they still use rags, there's no proper sanitation, and like I mentioned earlier, they drop out of school or college when they're in periods because they're just not comfortable with it. So this foundation counsels them, wants them to speak more about it, employs women to make low-cost sanitary pads. They actually go door to door in slums, telling them that why you need to use them and how to go about it. They also train female volunteers in English, math, and defense skills. So why are they famous now? Because Meghan Markle had discovered them, and they were the only ones who were invited to the royal wedding. But it's a very, very inspiring story of the guy. In India also, not many knew about them before they made it to the royal wedding. So, and now here, like, what can we do? Like, how can we make a difference? And it doesn't have to be if you're in India or in Estonia. How can we change the world for women in IT? The first thing's what I think we have to change our attitude. And while I was working in India, I used to do a lot of hiring. And in India, hiring could be crazy because I was working for one of the big companies. So if you just put in like a position for a developer, there would be like 300 applications in one day. So we used to have like this entire Saturday where people would come in. And so what we used to do is to reduce like the entire process. We used to give them tasks to work on. And we used to always select like the most difficult tasks. And before they would start working on it, I used to just generally ask them, have you gone through it? What do you think it is? Believe me, 75% of the boys used to say, yeah, and it used to be really difficult. We don't even expect them. They've just, it's their first job. But 75% of the boys used to be so confident. Yeah, it's nothing, it's easy, which I know that it's not for them. And only 25% of women would say that. So I used to always think that why are men and women approaching the same sort of problem so differently? Like boys always had overconfidence, which was good. Even in job applications, and this is actually a proven study by one of the US universities. And the thing is, men tend to apply for a job even if 60% of the criteria matches. But for women, unless it's 100%, they will not apply for a job. And this is what I found interesting. I think we as women need to be more confident. We need to just take our chances. And maybe there's something that we need to change in how we think or our attitude or approach towards things. Second thing, if any one of you wants to move to IT or start a career in IT, you don't need any special resources. Just go on YouTube or just go to free MOCs like Coursera or anything. Just start. You can do it yourself. And there are so many portals, you can just literally Google it. You don't need anything special, so don't delay it. Or maybe I can find a coaching, or maybe I can ask somebody to help me. No, you can just do it yourself. Start. And the thing is, make mistakes. I think both the girls have covered this, and I absolutely, absolutely believe in it. You have to make more mistakes. Unless you make mistakes, you will never, ever learn. Also support other women, encourage them. If it's your mom, my mom has started coding a bit now, which she didn't even want to, but I just forced it on her. But it's just something I wanted her to try once, because she used to always feel like, if there's like, in India sometimes, like when your network is like really slow, you can just see all the code between the transition. And she used to get like really overwhelmed. And I was like, no, now you can at least understand what the hell is happening. And this is one of my favorite quote, and I totally believe in it. Fake it till you make it. Like there's no other way. And thank you. Open to questions, and yes, including arranged marriages. Thank you very, very much. Any questions?
We have the box. Oh, yes. I'll try not to kill you.
Please don't. I don't have to work tomorrow. Question to you. My company also cooperates actually a lot with other companies in India. We have a lot of colleagues in India, and all of them are extremely hardworking people. But also, almost all of them would prefer actually to move to Estonia or a country like that, because they feel that there are a lot more opportunities, but they can't, also because of arranged marriages. Can you tell me what are the reaction of your family when you started on your path and eventually moved, quite literally across the world?
I think, first of all, the question was, where is Estonia? And the second of all, I think the only person who was like wholeheartedly, like super excited about was my dad. My mom didn't want me to move at all, because she's like, oh, I'm not going to see you often and all. But you know what? I cannot lie about it. I've been super lucky with the kind of family support, extended family support that I've always got. So for me, it wasn't difficult, but I know for a lot of people, it's next to impossible to move. But if you ask the younger generation, everyone wants to get out. So
I want to share my story, as I'm also from Egypt. I moved to Estonia 5 years ago. I was working in IDEA, graduated from Faculty of Computer Engineering in Egypt. So after working, I worked in cloud administration, network administration, and question what is my salary? Oh, you are a woman, you have to work for free, we will give you experience. Salary? No salary for woman. I was like, what the fuck? So, then after almost 5 years in Egypt and 5 years of experience, but salary was maybe 100 euro per month. I said, no, I must move out, and now I'm working and having nice salary. But in Egypt, I would maybe also have some marriage or some husband from hell. I don't know. So now I am free. Thanks.
yeah, the Any more questions?
Thank you, Aditi. It was wonderful.